I am Rishabh Gulati. North India and the national capital sitting in the middle of it in Delhi has been very literally saved by the breeze. Yes, the wind has been blowing for the last 48 hours and the air quality index, which was off the charts, forget trying to calculate it, is now back in the charts and we are at a wholesome, very poor instead of hazardous and severe. So, where complete paralysis has landed us in the spot, at least the heavens have been kind enough to give us a breath of a breeze of fresh air. Now, in this context of denial and delusion, there is no other word for it, it's total denial and delusion. Ladies and gentlemen, carbon dioxide, CO2, is a poison for the atmosphere, causes global warming. CO2 I exhale, but when the cars do it, in the numbers that they do it, they are damaging the global environment. So do we know that cars pollute? Yes, absolutely. The same cars run the entire year. The smog that you're seeing, okay, quote unquote, is particulate matter. CO2 is invisible. So that is particulate matter. A certain percentage, of course, comes from vehicles, but comes all year. It won't take a genius to assume that during this particular time, when all of North India is on fire, literally tens and hundreds of thousands of hectares are being lit in the flames, that the particulate matter is coming from the smoke of our fields. But even though it doesn't take a genius to presume this, when you are, literally living the emperor's new clothes and you're convinced that you're wearing the finest suit when actually you're naked, very little can convince you that the truth is otherwise. So here we are, consumed by this paralysis. The reason you're breathing a bit easier is not because the parali has disappeared or the burnings have stopped. They will stop eventually, but they haven't stopped right now. It's because the weather has been slightly better. So now let me, before I open this up with my guests, just like a ground check from on the ground. Okay. So Kamal is joining us. He's in Firozpur right now. Kamal, if you can hear us, can you just just दिखा दीजिए क्या पीछे आप खेत में खड़े हैं, क्या चल रहा है?
जी बिल्कुल, आप देख सकते हैं पीछे मेरे जो अभी पराली को जलाया गया उसके बाद जो है पराली का धुआं बिल्कुल नजर आ रहा है आपको, लाइट में दिख रहा है अभी अंधेरा होने के कारण।
Kamal, speak facing the camera, otherwise your audio disappears. So speak facing the camera. Yeah.
जी अभी आप देख सकते हैं मेरे पीछे जो है पूरे खेतों में पराली को जलाया गया है थोड़ी देर पहले और पूरी तरह धुआं हुआ पड़ा है। अंधेरा होने की वजह से अभी कुछ दिख नहीं रहा, पर ये जो हमारे पीछे आप खेत देख रहे हैं यहाँ पे पराली को पूरी तरह जलाया गया है और जिससे कि आप देख सकते हैं पूरा जो है वातावरण में है पूरा धुआं ही हुआ पड़ा है। हम इस टाइम जीटी रोड पे खड़े हुए हैं जहाँ पे काफी धुआं है और काफी पोल्यूशन हुआ पड़ा है। लोग जो है मास्क डाल कर निकल रहे हैं और मुंह पे कपड़ा अपने लपेट कर निकल रहे हैं।
तो आप देख सकते हैं आपको दिख रहा है जहां बैठे में फिरोजपुर में, ठीक है, आपको दिख रहा है कि पराली अभी भी जलाई जा रही है वहां पर?
जी बिल्कुल।
ओके,
मेरे पीछे ही आप देख सकते हैं खेतों में अभी लगाकर पराली को जलाया गया है।
ओके,
थोड़ी देर पहले और पूरा धुआं हुआ पड़ा है खेतों में।
ओके, सो इट्स स्टिल हैपनिंग एज वी स्पीक इन केस वी आर थिंकिंग नो इट्स डिसअपीयर्ड, नो इट हैजंट. ओके, it's still happening. Kamal, thank you for getting us a dipstick test. Okay, let's go across to Zira where my colleague Satish is standing by. Satish, आप पहले बताइए आप कहाँ हैं और क्या दिख रहा है आपको पीछे?
मौजूद हूँ जहाँ पे पराली को आग लगा चुके थे और खेत में यहाँ जला हुआ खेत है और हर तरफ जो है धुआं ही धुआं है और इतनी मतलब विजिबिलिटी इतनी खराब हो चुकी है कि आप देख सकते हैं कुछ भी नजर नहीं आ रहा, इतना धुआं हो चुका है। तो पराली को जो जलाने का सिलसिला है वो हर तरफ जो बादस्तूर जारी है।
ओके, सो इन फिरोजपुर, इन जीरा देयर, हियर इन पंजाब, it's still on. Okay, Now, we've taken very conscientious objections and responsibility to it, but let's look at actionability. Shailesh is now joining us on the broadcast as well. Shailesh ji, आप ज़रा बताएं आप कहाँ हैं और क्या चल रहा है वहाँ पर?
जब फगवाड़ा जो रास्ता जोड़ता है वहाँ पे 4:30 बजे यहाँ के जो गांव बाईपास में जो जितने जो खेत की जगह से मैंने अभी तो वहाँ पे बिजली की जगह पीछे धुआं पड़ रही है, लेकिन जो आज तक में खत्म हो गया। ये देख रहे पराली जो इस रास्ता गया है इसको रात के अंधेरे में जो यहाँ के किसाने रात को अंधेरे में गिराते हैं, जबकि दूसरी जो पंजाब सरकार ने जो किया था कि जो भी किसान है जो पराली गिराएंगे उसकी रेट एंट्री की जाएगी। तो नवाज जो डीसी साहब है उनसे भी तो संपर्क किया गया, बताया गया यहाँ पे आगजनी हो रही, किसान पराली गिरा रहे हैं, लेकिन वो उनको ये लगा हम अधिकारी को भेजेंगे तो वो लोग कभी हाथापाई झगड़ा हो जाता है, इसलिए हम लोग
Okay, I'm sorry for the poor audio. Obviously, you can't understand what he's saying. I can't understand either. But we're getting the gist from his gesticulations that where he is standing, and this is in Nawashahar, if I'm not mistaken, that the issue is exactly the same. Now, that was just a dipstick for reality check. Okay, for those people in denial. Okay, I mean, some people in the world think the world is flat. Okay. That's a conspiracy theory that we didn't land on the moon and stuff like that. Okay, so for people who think that nothing, this is not the problem. Well, this is very much the problem. Now, let's look at solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I began the conversation by saying that cars cause pollution. Okay, cars cause pollution. Full stop. Okay. So, look at the measures we are taking to battle pollution. Electric cars only battle pollution if the source of the electricity is not coming from a polluting source. Otherwise, electric cars don't battle pollution, they simply transfer pollution from one area to where the power plant is. Now, in this country of India, where electric cars are just starting off, okay, let's not kid ourselves, they're just starting off. It is more likely that your second car is going to be an electric car, that you already have a petrol burning vehicle. So, the families that can afford a second car are the ones who are buying the electric cars. The people who are rich, well-to-do, upper middle class, they are the ones who drive the brand new fancy cars and replace their cars every 3-4 years. Normal people, Aam Aadmi, who can't replace their cars every 2-3 years, buy a car and use it for 10-15 years. Sometimes buy a second hand car. So, when we come out with a ruling, okay, which is, I'm sure, well thought through, and yes, cars pollute, so let's ban all the old cars. Okay, makes sense, perfect sense, because if they're not BS4 compliant, they definitely are more polluting than the BS4 compliant cars. Think of who you are punishing. You are punishing the people who have the older cars, who are going to, by definition, be poorer people. People who bought second hand cars, or people who live just outside the jurisdiction of Delhi, or who once upon a time made the mistake of buying a diesel car. These are the people being punished. So, the problem is parali, okay, knowing full well that cars pollute, but the problem is parali, and the punishment is for the lower middle class guy whose car is 10 years old, who can't afford to buy a new car every couple of years, okay, who can't afford these electric cars. Okay. Now, this is what is going on. Now let's put this into context. Anand Arya, I think I can see him sitting with us, is joining us on the broadcast. Dr. PSV Rao is with us. Ritvik Bhaugana is joining us on the broadcast, and Lloyd Matthias is joining us. He's out of Delhi. Mr. Matthias, it's slightly better today, sir. I mean, I could see a little bit of longer distance, but in your context, what do you make of the ruling that the cars, banning the cars will fix the problem?
Thank you, Rishabh. I think this is a critical issue. And I clearly see that, these short-term staccato measures that the government is, banning the cars and closing schools for a few days, I think are really short-term measures. Fundamentally, I think what we are seeing is a collective failure of our political establishment. We've known this for years now. We know that every winter is that unique, cocktail of the climatic conditions, stubble burning, a little bit of vehicular industrial pollution, overall weather conditions. And every year we expose our citizens and our people to this life-threatening menace, right? And we've known this all along. I think this is a national health emergency.
No, but you're preaching to the choir, Mr. Matthias. All of us know it. I'm just looking at the solutions we are finding, okay? So the genius solution a few years ago, you'll recall, sir, before COVID, was this concept of odd even, okay? Now, if it was such a genius solution, it would have been permanently used everywhere. The fact that it is no longer being deployed anywhere clearly shows that it wasn't the most effectual solution. So the genius solution now, and is logical, I'm not saying it's illogical, that listen, the new cars which are BS4 compliant can run the old cars, but I've just given you the premise, sir. Not everybody can afford to replace their cars every 3 years. The poorer people generally hold on to their cars for longer or buy second-hand cars. So you're punishing the poor, okay, for what? For what? What impact is it going to make? And I'm sure Dr. Rao and Anand Arya will tell you that while cars are a problem, the current pollution is suspended particles which you can see in the air. Mr. Matthias.
Absolutely. I think no debate with you on that. I think these measures are short-term and doesn't make sense. And I think until we tackle the fundamental issue, which is the stubble burning that's primarily driving it, specifically in this period, it happens twice a year, but primarily we see the impact in the November period and less so in April, May. I think until that we find a technology and the political will to tackle that issue, I think everything else will just be piecemeal.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So let's look at the solutions which have been presented to us by our netas, our politicians, and those in various forms of government. Dr. Rao, this is what is being offered to us. Okay, one, keep your kids at home again because they haven't spent enough time in the past 2 years at home. Okay, so keep the kids at home. That is going to solve pollution, or at the very least protect them because they're for some reason safer in their houses than in their schoolrooms. So this is genius solution number one. Genius solution number two is ask the babus to work from home. So 50% of bureaucrats are working from home. Genius solution number two. Genius solution number three is punish the lower middle class. That the lower middle class who drives the older cars, who drives the second-hand cars, they can't take out their cars. So they are to be punished. When no one is talking about the parali burning. Now, how does this make sense to any sensible human being, sir?
Rishabh, it doesn't make sense to anyone. Absolutely. What you are doing is to push everyone home off the streets. And it's not that the homes are also not affected. Unless you close all your windows and have your own oxygen supply, you are going to have all this dust and smoke coming into your home also. Of course, it is worse outside, but it is there inside the home. And it is affecting everyone's health. Everyone's lungs, everyone's health is getting ruined by this. At the same time, you are ruining the, you are wasting a very valuable resource. This parali it has been used for cardboard paper manufacturing. It has been used,
there was a time, Dr. Rao, when the parali was used to feed livestock. I mean, the cattle could eat it. Okay, now I'm told these versions of particular high yield varieties can't be used for that. But Dr. Rao, I'm just trying to think that when a meeting is held and a list of action taken measures, not the theory everybody agrees on.
Right.
But action taken measures are, then listen, let's get the bureaucrats to stay at home, work from home, which you know what that means. Okay.
No, this is not going to work.
Who cooks up these? I mean, literally, what are they smoking when they cook up these solutions?
No, see, Rishabh, one, biomass burning, not only in the fields, the biomass being burnt on the streets of Delhi and the neighboring areas for various purposes like heating and other purposes of destroying this is all needs to be addressed. And the smoke coming out of coal burning thermal plants and such things also needs to be addressed. Yep. The technology is available. There is no question about it. Multiple users.
Yeah, but Dr. Rao, we know what kind of scam sham that carbon capture has been. Okay, yes. It's been around for 20 years, and let's be realistic. Okay,
Right.
So I'm not even getting into the fact that COP27 has become a controversial international thing. That's a separate debate for a separate time. Let me get Anand Arya into this conversation. Anand Arya, now I just want your take, sir, because on the action taken measures that I've read out to you is ban all the old cars. There's a logic to it, but it punishes people who can't afford new cars. Get the babus to stay at home and get the kids to stop going to school again. How is this going to help in any way, sir?
Rishabh, good to see you again at the beginning of the season again in season 2022. I think, whatever measures have been announced are really not measures. As you put correctly, these are punishment to the people. People who really matter for this, who are the mass of this country. Okay, that said, I think I would like to extend why we are in this situation is I would take the genius, using the word genius solution 2, that put the bureaucrats, 50% of the bureaucrats at home and let them work from there. I would like to modify it. I would say that we should permanently put these bureaucrats at their home, because had they done their work, even half the work, the bureaucrats who are particularly responsible for who are working in the area of cleaning up the environment, both at the central ministry as well as at the state ministries. Now, had they done anything which is there in black and white, as far as I know, it had been in the black and white for the last 8 years. Now the quantum is known, the solution is known. The problem is why these guys are not working. Let's say you talked about, the pollution, the vehicles.
But Anand Arya, yes. My question is very straightforward. Yeah. In a list of measures which you take to tackle pollution in Delhi at this point of time, and I've accepted the caveat that cars pollute, okay? But that's mostly CO2. It's a little bit of SPM, but it's mostly CO2, which has a larger damage on the planet. But the smoke that we are seeing, that you can see and smell, is from particulate matter which is coming from our fields. So how can you come up with a list of measures that does not address the root cause?
Exactly, that is what I'm saying. You mentioned that the vehicular pollution which is there, this can be treated to a very large extent if we go whole hog into developing a very robust public transport system, like you have it in London, you have it in New York, you have it in Tokyo, you have it in Paris, you have it in Seoul. Now,
no, but Anand Arya, that's the irony. In India, Delhi has the best. We were the first with the metro, first with the CNG buses. We are being the first with electric buses. In all of India, Delhi has the best.
Rishabh, it may be the best, but the question is it good enough? That is the question. What we need is a metro station availability or a bus station availability within 500 meters of every corner of Delhi and NCR. Including Noida, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, Sonipat, Panipat, or whatever that area we want to call it. So unless and until we are doing that, I have left no choice but to use my vehicle, especially for the old people, especially for... So public
and especially if you're older and you can't afford the the latest electric Mercedes which has come out. Exactly. Now you can't drive, but the guy who drives the electric Mercedes can drive just fine. That's the irony, Mr. Arya. Okay, that's the lovely irony in this. You punish the lower middle class. It's genius. It's genius. And you'd think that both for the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party, the lower middle class is the vote bank in Delhi. Those are the people with the old cars and the old scooters and the patpatiyas whom you've just punished. It makes ludicrous sense, but our netas are of course geniuses. Just hang a thought. Can I get my touchscreen on air, please? Okay. So this is the satellite image. Guys, it's no longer blobs of red. It is the whole thing is red.
Exactly. Now,
there's nothing left. There is no gap in the red. These are active fires as measured from satellite data in North India at this point of time. Okay? Active fires, which are burning right now. Okay? It's not a few blobs of red. There is nothing, there is no gap in between the red blobs. Okay? That's where we've reached. But it's keep the kids at home. That solves the problem. Let's get Ritvik into this. Ritvik, now what do we do? Do we keep the bureaucrats at home? Do I send the bureaucrats to the khets to rip out the parali? Do I keep the kids at home? Do I say that you guys with old cars can't drive anymore? What is the solution here? Are these the solutions? Ritvik, if you can hear us.
So Rishabh, one thing is very clear. We can, and I hope I am audible to everybody. One thing is very clear. Everyone in the ecosystem, farmers or the government officials know what the solutions are. Everyone also knows what the problem is. If I were to, just very quickly elaborate on the reasons why farmers are burning stubble. Number one, a 20 to 40-day window for them to harvest paddy and start sowing wheat. Second, all alternatives which have been provided to farmers by the governments, both Haryana, Punjab, are not affordable. They are very expensive. And the cheapest and the fastest way for farmers to get rid of the stubble is to burn stubble.
So Ritvik, I'm going to come to our solutions in the second part of our telecast, because it's obvious. If I can put, I'm sitting in the studio, I have a 40,000 rupee air purifier lying next to my left foot. Okay. So if I can spend 40,000 rupees for a purifier, I'm sure I can make a contribution to the poor farmer to make it economically viable for him to not burn the parali. So I'm going to come to that later. I'm asking you that by asking 50% of bureaucrats to stay at home, by shutting schools once again, okay, the kids have been shut out of school for the past 2 years anyway, by asking lower middle class people that you cannot no longer drive your cars, do any of these things immediately solve the problem? Will it be a better day tomorrow because of these things? Simple question.
Absolutely not. And in fact, all this this is a knee-jerk reaction which happens every year for these 15-20 days, and it also causes a lot of economic loss. When people are sitting at homes, not going to school, not going to offices, in addition to the damage we are causing to our health, there is also a lot of economic loss. In fact, last year, in a 1 month period, the economic loss was calculated upwards of $30 billion US. So this is knee-jerk reaction costs us even more.
Okay, so we have a rough consensus, okay, that all the measures that have been announced will have little or no bearing in the short term, next few days, on the pollution in the city. Just like the fact that the much touted odd-even scheme, if it was such a genius idea, then everybody all over the world, including all over in India, right now in Delhi, in Lucknow, in Chandigarh, in Ludhiana, everywhere there would be odd-even because the cars were the problem. Well, guess what? The cars are a problem, but they're not the problem right now. The problem is something else. I mean, look what's happening on your screens. That's the problem, okay? So we obviously need to tackle the problem. So I'm going to address in a couple of minutes, and then we'll try to take suggestions to proactively tackle this problem. So, Mr. Matthias, okay, the N95 mask which you now have to buy for pollution, not for COVID, is going to cost you money. The damage to your health is going to cost you money. I've got a chest congestion as we speak. I have to buy medicines which are going to cost me money. I have to do inhalation which costs me money, and I have to put purifiers in my house which cost me money. So the guys who run Hitachi, Dyson are raking in it right now. So all these guys are making money. Why can't we figure out a system which addresses the problems and doesn't come up with make-up band-aid solutions?
Agree, Rishabh. I think the time for these little knee-jerk reactions and these band-aid solutions that actually are putting citizens and the lower middle class into more inconvenience is long gone. And clearly, we need our political establishments to find a more holistic solution, given that we've had all this time, and this problem is likely to recur year on year. And typically, after this one fortnight of, let's say, parali burnings, people tend to forget and come around May again, we might have a problem. I think we have to look at a holistic solution. These knee-jerk reactions, these band-aid solutions are not the problem. Since the fundamental issue is about the stubble burning that clearly is impacting, until our center and state governments get down to finding a solution to that, everything else will be just peaceful. And really, and as Ritvik mentioned, you're not just affecting the lives of people. I think over time, it's also going to affect people's livelihoods. I mean, companies and businesses are likely to move out of this northern part of the country. And if I can just add one more point, I think the northern belt, the Gangetic Plain, is most impacted. But I dare say that some of our other cities like Mumbai and Chennai possibly have been just about as bad if they didn't have the sea breeze every evening.
Yeah.
Right? Delhi and northern India is landlocked, so we're particularly badly off.
Yeah, bang on, absolutely right. So Delhi has extremes of everything, extremes of winter, extremes of, I mean, you can hit 5 degrees in winter and 45 degrees in the summer. And you're choked, and you're absolutely right. Now, I have an increasing set of, we are organizing a few conclaves coming up in the next few weeks. Parliament session is coming up in the next few weeks. And I have more and more people who are saying that they are now out of town. They're leaving. And those who can afford to, but again, who can't afford to leave? It's very simple. So the only people being punished right now are the vote banks of the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP, which is the lower middle class. It's unbelievable, the short-sightedness, the hubris, the total delusional insanity which is in play right now, that you come up with a set of measures that includes that the bureaucrats of the city, whose job it is to serve the people, can now work from home. I mean, they hardly work from office. What is the work from home that they're going to do? Come on, ludicrous. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a break. And on the other side, we're going to discuss logical solutions which deal with parali burning, are not an excuse to shut schools and give the bureaucrats a day off.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.